Welcome to the top of the morning show. It's your girl TT from the D, and it's a thankful Thursday. This morning, I feel like giving a testimony. You know, I believe in being very transparent, and sometimes I can be too transparent. But I think what I'm dealing with right now, and my family is dealing with, my elderly mother is dealing with, is something that we all, if we are lucky, we will all encounter in this thing called life. This journey we take every day. And it brings us, if we are adults and we watch our older parents, if we're lucky to still have them on this earth, as they resort back to like a childlike mentality stage, right? Where it's like, my uncle, I have an uncle, my last living uncle, he said something to me that really is profound. He said, for my mother, it's twice a baby and once a lady. He said, your mom was once a baby and she had to be taught and protected and directed and given tools to be able to grow into this woman that will live a life, a full life. And then she returns to the stage of a child. It's almost like the process of life, if we looked at it differently through, of course, a different lens. So today's episode is, how do I know if my elderly loved one needs home care? And I've been researching for the last 2 years, trying to find out, because my mother is not at the stage where she needs to be, where someone needs to take care of her, because she still cooks and cleans and shops and dresses, and she's still spicy. But her memory, sometimes we notice some things that her memory is kind of off. She's also dealing with hearing loss, and she's in denial. You know how that goes. She's like, I'm not wearing this big ass ear thing in my ear, and people. I said, it doesn't matter. I don't care if my hearing aid was the size of a shoe. If that means that I can hear, then I want to hear everything. I don't care if I had to walk around with a headset on like I'm on the telephone. If I can hear, give it to me. So we're different. People think differently, of course. So we think about this stage when we older. In this stage, the age my mother's in, she's in her early 70s. And that retirement age, right? We think of, it's a fulfilling time for adults. They've worked hard. They've lived out their dreams and their goals. And now it's time to enjoy elderly time, right? The golden years. But what if life throws you a curveball and something happens with your mind? Something happens with your body, and you can't do what you once did before, and you need a little bit of help. At what point do we think about home health care support, where someone comes in and checks on them, and if they don't live with you, or if you don't have the means, or you don't have the space, or they feel like, I don't want to live with nobody, I want to be independent, versus, okay, now you need to go into an assisted living program or a nursing home. And I always thought to myself, my mother will never go into a nursing home. That's my hope, that's my prayer, and I still stand on that. But I think I'm at the place where now she needs not assisted living, but a nice facility that offers companionship, like for people her age, bingo, and things of that nature, if you get what I'm saying. Our older parents, when they have spouses, it's difficult, because if they're not both in that season and one is more alert than the other, then it causes confusion and sometimes heartbreak, because to see your significant other slowly lose their memory or not do the things they once did, it can be heartbreaking. Let me share some information that I got from a website that seems to be very reliable, called comfortcare.com. This is directly their sources. So if I was writing an APA paper, I would be citing my resource, right? My source, and it would be comfortcare.com. So that's not comfort with a T, comfort care. So that's COMFORCARE.com. Shout out to them for putting this out there, okay? They said, you're noticing changes in their appearance. A change in a loved one's appearance or personality is one of the earliest red flags for many families. Now again, that wasn't my mother's issue. There were other things that was piquing my antennas, my spidey antennas, if we will. But then I noticed my mother loves to dress, and just going out and about, just doing her thing. When she stopped driving, she was confined to the house unless she would have my sister, myself, my husband, or my older son run her around or do things like that, right? And while it's normal for older adults to take 1 or 2 fewer showers in their 20s, right? Early days, hey, they're getting ready. They want to smell fresh and clean. It changes when they move around the house and they feel like, I only take a shower today. I ain't been outside. I ain't been anywhere. I'm good. But that's not their norm. What about when you feel like, or you notice they're experiencing more than usual frequent forgetful moments? Now, we normally forget things. Just because we forget things doesn't mean we automatically need memory care. But what about when you're going through and they're going through and you realize like they really forgot something so simple as where they may have laid their keys, or if they have taken their medication or appointments, if they were one of those people birthdays that always remember and all of a sudden they're not remembering anymore, right? And they might look at it and say, oh, I just kind of forgot. I mean, we do. People in their 20s, 30s, 40s, you get it. They forget. We all forget. It's nothing wrong with it. It's a part of life. We're going to forget some things. So don't start freaking out if you're like, oh my God, I have started forgetting things. We all do, sweetheart. Sir, ma'am, boy, girl. We all have, and we all will. But it's a little bit different, y'all. It's a little bit different when you started to notice more and more, right? Taking notes of, they forgot this or they forgot that, and so you say, okay, all right, okay. And they're like more and more frequent, right? When you realize and notice that they need more help with physical activities. Now, my mother still want to climb her little spicy self up on step ladders and I changed my curtains, and I'm like, how did you get up there? Oh, I stepped on the step ladder. I'm like, Mom, please stay off the step stool. And so my stepfather, he's older. He's 90, believe it or not, and still works, y'all. I said, when you gonna retire and enjoy, like, you've worked all your life. You served 2 terms in the military, right? He was a part of one war. Remember, I said he was 90. And so he's like, well, you know what happens, TT, that I noticed and I don't want to happen to me? And I knew what he was gonna say because I've heard it time and time and time and time again. He says, you know how many of my friends retired and they had all these plans. They were going to do this and they were going to do that. And then they weren't used to getting up and moving and doing. So they ended up passing away because they weren't moving around. And he says, so I don't want that to be my story. So I work, and I'm going to continue to work because it gets me out the house. I stay in touch with my friends. I get to see people. And I realize that totally is the situation for most elderly people. And you can't fault them, right? We can't fault them. So I'm like, okay, I respect that. I respect it. But it's still hurtful, right? Because we're also in denial. We're looking at them like, oh. So then now when we say they need a little bit more help with that physicalness, right? They might need you to come over and do laundry for them or do some vacuuming and sweeping. But now that shifts to my mother. She loves tidying up. She will come to your house and be like, oh, let me get them dishes for you. Let me iron that for you. Let me wash this for you. Let me clean that. And I learned that I have to just let her be great because it brings her joy. She don't mind. She may complain like I had to wash and I had to do my baseboards and I had to. And then it's like, okay, but she enjoys it. What about when they no longer feel comfortable behind the wheel? Now that happened with our mother a couple of years ago, this is probably going on the second year. She never admitted it to me and my sisters, but she did share it with my brother. And she got nervous. Like, I watched her one time. We were in Costco, and she sent me to go get something, and she was comfortably walking with her buggy, taking her time. And when I walked back up with all the things she sent me off to get with no buggy, I heard her constantly apologizing to people. I'm sorry, excuse me. I'm sorry, excuse me. And I'm thinking, like, why she keep... So I walked up. I said, Ma, you okay? She's like, yeah. I said, why are you apologizing to people? I said, you're walking like everybody else in here. Take your time. We're not in a hurry. This is not a freeway. And they will understand. So she was like, okay. And I was thinking, like, that's something a child would do, right? Kids do, young people do. And I said, okay, when she's out and about, I'm so glad she doesn't drive and do all these things. When she makes her runs, we make jokes about it, call it we driving Miss Daisy, because she sure will get you. You already know when my mother calls and says, hey, I need to run a couple errands. Can you run me to the bank and I need to go to the store? I'm like, okay, when you want to go? When you got time? So now I have to look at my calendar, make sure I don't have anything to do, because let me tell you what I know. You can't take mom 1 and 2 places. She'll go say, oh, I need to run by. And can we, let's sit down and eat. Let's go sit down. So I clear my calendar. I make sure it stays clear on that day. I'm going to hang out with mom. It's an all day thing. I can pick her up at 10 o'clock in the morning. We won't get back to like 9 o'clock at night, because we did everything in one shot. And you know what? I laugh and it gives us moments and happy moments, I can say, because every moment you spend with your elderly parents, they become memorable for you to the day that when they are no longer here, if you're still here on earth, you can actually look back at times and say, oh, I remember when I took mom or I took dad to so-and-so and we was at the so-and-so doing the so-and-so, and it's like, oh, I remember that, right? It's a beautiful moment that we have to capture. But we have to be mindful, right? Capture and be mindful, because we don't know when those moments will be taken away. And I'm not going to say stolen, because when you start to learn life and how the journey of life really occurs, you realize it's not stolen moments. It's happy moments that you've created, because we're all here for just a little time. So her wanting to stop driving was not a bad thing for us, because we also felt comfortable knowing that people, because drivers aren't so friendly. They're not friendly to their own people, their own ages. So imagine how they treat the seniors. Then you think about, are they dealing with minor health issues, right? If they got arthritis, if they got rheumatoid arthritis, that's the worst, I think. If they have any walking issues, any just stabilized situations, if they need a pull-up bar, blah, 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 right? If they are on medication and they may not, remember to take their medication, it's all these things. You can get a pill thing and say, okay, here you go, Monday through Sunday. Here's your pills for the day, take this. But then if they're forgetting and they're looking like, I thought I took that, it's like, uh-oh. If you think that you're feeling like increased stress, it could be because you are experiencing what I've just learned is called caregiver burnout. And I think I have ran into that. And it brought me to searching and looking, because I know that our mother is still capable of taking care of herself and doing for herself, and will continue to do so as the Lord allows her and blesses her to do. But I also know that it's time that we really take a good, strong look at what's happening, how frequently it's happening, and take the necessary precautions. And I realize all the Googling I've been doing, searching and seeking, hasn't been easy. It hasn't been easy at all. It's been a very difficult task if you really want to be truthful. There are so many people, it's like you got to be mindful too. Let me say this, you have to be mindful for scammers. There's scammers out here that take advantage of people who are just trying to get resources for their loved ones, right? So you got to be mindful of that, and that's sad to say that, but there's people out here who will take full advantage of a family or members of a family all they're trying to do is provide and get the necessary information they need to help look after their elderly parent. And they'll take full advantage of it because they're like, oh, they don't know, right? I can't tell you on my search how many times through Googling, searching, putting in keywords that I ran into this and I ran into that just to realize some of these people are connected, and they'll say, well, we didn't even know we were affiliated. How? Like, wow. It's a difficult place to be in life. Yet I wouldn't trade it. I went through a little bit of this with my father before he passed away and had to go into a nursing home because he needed around the clock care, 24 hours. You know, he needed that. My mother's not at that stage in life, and I hope and pray to God that he allows her to continue, if nothing else, to be at the level where she is now. She just returned from visiting our siblings out in Arizona. She enjoyed the weather, and God blessed us to get all of our children out to Arizona at one time so that we could get a family photo with my mom and all of her grandchildren. It was one of the most beautifulest photos I think I've ever seen. It brought me great joy. It brought me great joy. So I really, really want to say thank you to God for giving us wisdom, knowledge, patience, peace, and love and kindness. And I ask for a double portion as we get ready to continue the journey of loving on our elderly parents, our grandmothers, if you're still blessed to have one, our grandfathers, if you're still blessed to have one. I no longer have a grandparent in this life, right? But I have memories. I lost my father a few years ago. Still blessed to have my mom, as crazy as witty as she is, but I'm watching her deteriorate slowly. And it's not a beautiful thing, of course, but I'm trying to learn and assist and continue to love as I continue to pray and do the best I know how. There's no blue book. There's all these resources, all these must reads and extras, but to walk in these shoes that we're walking in, my siblings and I, my husband, all the village. I had a good, courageous conversation, and I talked and I said, you know, I realized that it takes a village for elderly people as well. We always say that cliche phrase, it takes a village to raise a child, and it does. Let's make no mistakes about that, it does. But I'm realizing it also takes a village to assist and love on, excuse that water, y'all, I'm prepping some food. It also takes a village to help the elderly. And I'm like, okay, I see where we at, right? We see what we're doing. We see what we got to go through, what we are experiencing, and we may not like it, and it may not be the best thing. I'm really in these cabinets, y'all. Y'all might say, oh my God, TT. Yeah, I know it's 5,000 things. When it's early, you trying to get things going. You ain't trying to miss a beat. You trying to do everything at one time, and you being obedient. It ain't always pretty, y'all. So excuse that water running, the dishwasher running, all that, right? When you're meal prepping, you're doing all this stuff, you're like, whoo, let me try to do all this and trying to knock this out and still knock out my responsibility as a podcaster. Because I thought this is going to be a great show. It's going to be a great episode because, one, I know I ain't the only one that has an elderly parent that is going through this. By a long shot, I know I'm not the only one, right? And I'm like, each one teach one, right? We got to love on each other. We got to pray together. Support each other. You know, share our resources. Because we all, if we're lucky, we'll all go through this. And if I know something that can help you and your family, and vice versa, I think that would be so beautiful that we start to share resources and information. Considering we all, if we're lucky, we'll all have to go through this journey with our loved ones, with our elderly parents, big mama, pawpaw, whoever. daddy, you know what I'm saying? Whoever that is, that elderly loved one, your neighbor that you befriended. I know a lovely young lady who lives next door to two older ladies, and I guess they besties and or siblings. They could be siblings. I can't remember, but they take care of each other, and they're older, and I think that's the most beautiful thing. You know, so this show is personal, very transparent, yes, by all means, but it's a must. It was a must. It was a must today. And I hope that you have enjoyed it. I hope that I've said something that has sparked something in you or you could relate to. There's a such thing called respite. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's something you might want to look into. If you have an elderly loved one and you need a moment, a break, and you don't have no family, no support, nobody to pick up the pieces, it's called respite. Look into it. People tend to use it for their children, but there's also adult respite services as well. Well, that's all I have for you on this Thankful Thursday, because I am thankful. Although I just shared what I shared, I'm still grateful and I'm very thankful. And I hope that you are too. Join me in the morning for the Top of the Morning Show at 6 a.m. It's been a pleasure. It's your girl, TT from the D.